The whispers started the second she walked into the cafe. Heads turned, eyes narrowed, and then came the laughter. Her jacket sleeve had slipped, revealing the long scars crawling up her arm, scars she didn't hide fast enough. One man snickered. What happened to her? Run into a blender. A group of women at the counter giggled behind their hands. She tugged her sleeve down, face burning red, but the sting of their mockery cut deeper than the scars ever had. She was a simple woman, quiet, unassuming, never asking for attention. Her clothes weren't flashy, her voice was soft, and she spent most of her time alone. The scars on her arms, her neck, even faintly across her jawline, made her an easy target. People assumed weakness, they assumed tragedy, and they assumed they could laugh without consequence. But then, as she reached for her coffee and turned to leave, a silence fell over the cafe. A man in uniform, broad-shouldered, hardened by time and war, had frozen mid-step. His eyes locked on her forearm, where the cuff of her sleeve had slipped again. But this time, it wasn't the scars that caught him, it was the ink just above them, a tattoo. Small, faded, but unmistakable. His breath hitched. It was the unit crest of a battalion he knew better than his own reflection. The battalion that had fought in the desert, the one where only a handful survived. The mark of those who endured fire, blood, and sacrifice. The cafe was dead silent now as the veteran stepped closer. The laughter stopped. The whispers died. The room seemed to hold its breath. He stood before her, eyes wide, voice shaking. Where did you get that tattoo? She looked at him, confused, then lowered her gaze. For years, she had hidden it. For years, she had avoided questions, but something in his eyes, something raw, something familiar, made her answer. Quietly, she whispered, I served with the 8th Battalion. The cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The entire cafe gasped. The very people who mocked her scars now stared in disbelief. This simple woman they had laughed at, the one they thought was fragile, had survived what they could never imagine. She had not just worn the uniform, she had worn his uniform. The veteran's knees went weak. He stammered, You were there. The ambush, the night we lost half the unit. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I was there. I carried men out. I held the line when no one else could. And these, she lifted her sleeve, exposing the scars fully. These are what it cost me. Gasps rippled through the cafe. The laughter curdled into shame. People lowered their heads, unable to meet her eyes. The same scars they mocked were medals carved by survival, proof of battles they couldn't even pronounce. The veteran stepped forward, his eyes wet now, his hands trembling as he reached up and saluted her. Right there, in front of everyone, a full, solemn salute. His voice cracked as he said, Ma'am, it's an honor. You saved lives. You're a hero. She froze. Hero. No one had called her that. Not when she came home broken. Not when she was discharged, her body scarred and her spirit bruised. Not when she lived in silence, carrying nightmares alone. For years, people had only seen the damage, never the courage. But here, in this cafe, one soldier's recognition broke the dam. Tears welled in her eyes as the room erupted in awkward silence. Then, one by one, people stood. Not to laugh, not to mock, but to clap. Hesitant at first, then louder, stronger. The same voices that ridiculed her now chanted her name, and she stood taller. For the first time in years, the scars no longer shameful but sacred. The veteran placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll never understand what you gave, but I do, and I will never forget it. From that day forward, the cafe changed. No one dared laugh when she walked in. Instead, people offered her seats, bought her coffee, whispered her story to strangers. She didn't seek fame, didn't seek glory, but her scars spoke louder than words. She was a survivor, a soldier, a woman who had walked through fire and returned with the proof written on her skin. And those who mocked her learned a lesson they'd never forget. Scars are not signs of weakness. They are the handwriting of battles survived. Because sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest stories. And sometimes the simplest woman in the room is the one who once held the line when the world was on fire. And the day a veteran froze at her tattoo, the world finally saw her for who she truly was, not broken, not pitiful, but a warrior carved from steel.